Hello.
Okay. We're normally introduced by Ray Bray, who has had to go to the dentist, and I'm quite sure he would much rather be here. But in his absence,
Yeah.
I will be introducing Kate, who is going to talk to us about the many benefits of circle dance. Something I'm very interested in and know nothing about, Kate. So please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. I actually meant to call it dance. Uh, it's physical, social, and spiritual benefits. I will, yeah, probably talk most about circle dance because that's what I do now. Um, but I'm very aware of other kinds of dance, all of which have lots of those benefits.
Hmm.
Um, so, do you dance? A few nods.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
think most people dance because my definition of dance is moving to music.
Hmm.
Um, and it might be as simple as tapping your foot or waving your hands or conducting when you've got a piece of music you really like, um, or singing energetically and moving as you sing. Because I think it's a very human thing to do. Um, and how do you feel when you're dancing? Because I think, um,
Happy.
uh,
Sorry.
yeah, often you're feeling happy, or you might be feeling expressive, or it might be releasing uh, something. Even sad music sometimes it can be nice to dance to. Um, I've got one or two quotes because I have acquired in the last few years, particularly, some books about dancing. I've got sort of more deeply interested in it and even done some training in it. Uh, June Watts is a very well known, um, sadly, she's died, I think it might be a year or two ago, but a very influential choreographer and circle dancer. And she's written a book. Uh, and she says, unlike most other species on the planet, we have always danced. Fact one. I think they're finding actually that some other species dance and have a good sense of rhythm, including some parrots and some apes. Anyway, fact two, the most natural form in life is the circle. Everything natural moves in a cycle, traveling from a beginning through a middle to an ending, which is another beginning. And yet a circle is seamless, having neither beginning nor ending. Above us is the wheel of the heavens, the great cosmic circle dance of the sun, moon, and stars. Around us is the cycle of the seasons.
All right.
The springtime shoots through the summer expansion and autumn harvest to the dying down, the returning to the earth, the composting of the old out of which new life emerges. Oh, by the way, can you hear me all right? Forgot to check that the sound.
Thank you.
Um, and they found, evidence of, of singing and dancing and ritual. Um, you know, Archaeologists have found that they've realised that caves, the areas where paintings were made, are acoustically very good, if you like. Um, and cathedrals and big churches, it's quite unquakerly, but one of the main things about them was their acoustic. They were meant to have music, and originally they would have had dancing, But then the church got funny about that and decided that, yeah, they couldn't control it, I think, well enough. So they banned it in many areas. Yeah, so it's part very much of our culture, and I think most, well, not just our culture, but cultures around the world tend to have dance, even though it's at different times been suppressed. It does tend to resurface, or it is hidden away, but people want to do it. I think it's perhaps a human need, actually, to be able to move to music. I think music is also a human need, and we would have sung or made noises and played bone flutes, which again the archaeologists have found from way, way back. Give you one or two other quotes. I'll probably dot them around. Rumi, many of you may have read his poems. Sufi mystic, lived 1207 to 1273, so way back. One of his quotes, a quote from him: "Dance when you're broken open. Dance if you've torn the bandage off. Dance in the middle of the fighting. Dance in your blood. Dance when you're perfectly free." Which I think covers most times. It can be relevant, a bit like coming to meeting, even when you're depressed or angry or whatever. I think it's good to dance, to listen to music, to sing, whatever you're feeling. Then I thought I'd explain a little bit how my dance journey has gone. I've always loved it. And I think, toddlers jig around to music. Probably did. I went to ballet classes for 2 or 3 years when I was quite young, first at school, I think. And then later on, I was lucky that at school, I think my favourite lesson was modern dance, it was called, I think, and it was very free. We had a little diary. We didn't have to hand in. It was personal to us, and the music was put on. You did what you liked to it, and then you jotted down any thoughts, feelings, what you wanted in this little diary. And I suppose I was quite quiet at school. I found this was a way of expressing myself. And then later on, there was an opportunity to do Scottish dance, which I did. Somebody taught us a little bit of ballroom dance, I remember, in the sixth form, so that we could have a leaving dance. And then I came across circle dance in the 80s, I think, at some Quaker gatherings. It's still often part of yearly meeting. If there's a residential one, somebody will offer circle dance. And I loved it as a coming together. I think we did it at the beginning of the day, and sometimes it's good at the end of the day to join together and sort of recognize that you've shared something. You might have been doing different workshops, but you've shared something by coming together for a Quaker gathering. I was quite busy though in those times, so it was a bit sporadic. I found a group, and we also had one at French Meeting House. one of our previous wardens started a group, Louise Melbourne, and I went when I could, but it was on an afternoon, so it all depended what hours I was working and so on, which I really loved anyway. A lot of that early circle dance was folk dances, because, well, we in Britain would have had some circle dance. Unfortunately, we forgot a lot of them. There's a few traditional British ones left, but there's lots more in places like Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, and so on. So I learned those dances, and that was lovely. It was different kinds of music, different instruments. You learned a bit about the culture. You felt, as well as a connection with the people you were dancing with, you were learning about other places and connecting in some ways with other people around the world. And I think that's also important, to make these connections. And some dancers, one of our teachers went to Bulgaria a lot and was taught by Bulgarian dance teachers, and learned a lot about their culture. In the 2010s, I persuaded Frank, my husband, to give it a try. He wasn't keen on dancing before that. But we'd always both loved classical music, and there was a teacher in Bath who started a group for beginners, really, using classical music. She was ballet trained, but very gentle. She was a Quaker, Dorothy Jerome. I don't know if anybody ever came across her. She's moved around the country quite a lot, and I think she's near Stroud now. Anyway, and he enjoyed that. And then we both went to a regular class in Thornbury. And as many of you may know, that he developed dementia. But like many people with dementia, although language got difficult, in fact, he lost spoken language completely, he could still sing. He couldn't speak. But for quite a while, he could still sing. And we went to singing for the brain. And he could dance. And there were two lovely men. It's unusual in this country to have men dancers, unfortunately. But there were two in the Thornbury group who took him under their wing and would go either side of him, because of course you don't need a partner. It doesn't matter who you're with next to, and make sure that he was going the right way, and give him sort of moral support. And so that was lovely, and it also showed how it can be adapted for people, so that they can carry on with something that they've enjoyed and means a lot to them. Meanwhile, I'd also discovered that you could have a whole suite of dances. And the first one I saw advertised was The Armed Man by Carl Jenkins, also known as The Mass for Peace. And obviously the title, I knew the music, a title appealed. And they were going to dance in Wells Cathedral, which isn't that far away, less than an hour. And so I did that. I joined in that. It was a choreographer called Brenda Kelly, sadly also not with us anymore. And she did it with a dancing nun who I've danced with a few times, Lorraine Kelly, um, who, to meet her, you would never guess she was a nun. uh, and she's a great dancer, very, you know, sort of sprightly. She doesn't wear a habit. She does wear black usually, but um, yeah, and she's been in several of these dance suites. And I found that with these, that's particularly where the spiritual comes in, really, because you're following through something. It has a theme, um, and it does help, I think, despite my Quaker background, that it's in a sacred space, like, and obviously a place with wonderful acoustic and a beautiful place. I do love Wells Cathedral. And they have been very welcoming, actually, of dancing there, which isn't true of all cathedrals. Some of them are a bit out of date and think, oh, what's this dancing? Can't have that. But several cathedrals have welcomed us. Um, and yeah, so I now do several of those every year, and they're usually on a theme, often peace, sometimes religious, but it's very much open to people of any religion. There's a very beautiful piece of music we've used in a peace suite, which combines the I'm trying to think that it's the call to prayer and the Ave Maria. Call to prayer with a male voice and the Ave Maria with a female voice. It's a very beautiful piece of music, very appropriate, really, for a dance suite on peace. And it's interesting that these suites of dances, they do attract people of faith. We usually have one or two priests or vicars, and sometimes they're a good way into a church, because if they say it's okay, it's more likely that a cathedral's sort of admin or whatever will say, oh, I suppose it must be okay. This person's a vicar. But there are agnostics, atheists, and we don't necessarily discuss our religion. We just enjoy and put our heart and soul into it, really. Um, and people come from other countries because it's so inspiring. There are a few, I mentioned Brenda Kelly, who sadly died some years back. But there are other choreographers. There is a lovely one called Nanny Klurker. She's Dutch originally, and she was a ballet dancer before, so she is a beautiful dancer to watch. But she's got such a feel for music, classical music, that she's able to devise these beautiful dances. I'm just trying to find, I have got a picture of her, but I couldn't find a picture of her sort of properly danced, as it were. There are she's written this book, Dance to Reconnect.
Right. Yeah.
And she's also set up with others a kind of movement, if you like, called Art for Peace, which is not just dancing, but art and music. And she works with various other artists. What are the qualities? Nanny. I don't know if you can see, it's a bit small. That's Nanny.
Very exciting, actually. Yeah.
And she must be well into her 50s and looks about 30. It's very beautiful and very elegant. But she has devised a whole lot of these. Um, and the first one of hers I did was the creation. That's shining a bit. Which follows through the different stories, parts of the creation story. Now, as Quakers, you might be quite skeptical. But interestingly, the singing nun, the dancing nun, when we first did that, she did a sort of explaining and discussing bit. And it wasn't what you might expect from a nun, because she was pointing out, well, there's two creation stories in Genesis, this one and this one. And then she also talked about creation stories in other cultures around the world. And yeah, I've always thought of them as myths. But myths can have a truth within them, and can help us appreciate the world or even understand the world without taking them literally. So, yeah, that's how I see the creation story. And yeah, I don't find it contradicts my Quakerism in any way. Let's give you a chance to ask questions or discuss in a minute. Oh, in Britain, I ought to say, Nanny's grandfather was this man, Bernard Vosine, and those are his sketches as well. And he was a ballet dancer well, he was born in what's now Poland, but became part of Germany in the 40s. He was born in 1912, I think. And he was a ballet master, choreographer, but as he sort of did less dancing as he got older, he got more and more interested in folk dance and travelled around collecting folk dances. And he is regarded as the person who got it going again in Britain. And what he did, he came to Scotland, Findhorn, which you might have heard of, and started doing what he called sacred circle dance, which was choreographed to classical music and a way of bringing community together, and developing spiritually, I suppose. Yeah. Oh, and there's another quote, and Nanny quotes it in the book, but she got it from somewhere else, and I'm sorry I didn't write down the author, but I could find it afterwards. She said, and I love this, if you can dance together, you can live together. And I think, if we danced more and with people different from us, different religion, different race, different background, yeah, I think we would probably live together better. Particularly dances where you feel that connection. And that's why I like circle dance as opposed to line dance or couple dance or whatever, because most, not all, but most of our dances, you are actually holding people, um, and you're aware of them. You feel them. You have to be aware of them so that you keep the circle shape. Otherwise, it goes all lopsided, and you bump into people and so on. So it's very much more than just you. You are feeling part of something. Um, and I haven't really mentioned the physical benefits, but I think they're fairly obvious. And apparently, they've done some studies that say if you do exercise you enjoy, you're more likely to do it, and you probably get more benefit from it because not just the physical. I think I probably ought to stop there and open the discussion up.
I found that really inspiring. I'm looking around here thinking what I've got around, that I can play, that I might start dancing to. I've got dodgy knees, so any dancing that you can recommend that isn't. I mean, I know one can sit in a seat and dance with one's arms, but I mean, do you know if there are any dancing you can do on your feet? you know, joined with other people where the steps are a bit less awkward than they are once your knees don't work.
Yeah. Well, in many circle dance groups, um, we're all getting older.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it's always flexible. Some people need to sit out from time to time, they just get tired. Um, I know somebody, there's a step called a grapevine, which is a bit twisty
Mm.
because you're going across and side and across again. And some people find that uncomfortable, gets their knees or their ankles, and so they don't do those dances. Or sometimes you can adapt them, and if you're moving around doing a grapevine, you might be able to just do walking sort of steps instead. Um, and groups usually are very happy to accommodate that sort of thing. So another thing is some dancers have arms going up, and people say, "Oh, I've got a frozen shoulder," or whatever. Well, do what you can. Do the
Yeah.
other arm if that will go. um, or somebody has a very bad arm at the moment, and even just holding hands that side is awkward for her. And especially if she feels any kind of pull on that arm. So what she does is have a long scarf, and on that side, the scarf is what the next person holds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's still connected up. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and during COVID, some groups danced without holding at all, but other groups said, well, bring a scarf and we'll all have a scarf between us so that we're a bit spread out. We're not actually holding
Yeah.
hands, but we are still connected. So I think, yeah, you can use your ingenuity quite a lot. And a lot of circle dances are fairly gentle, especially the ones to classical music.
Mm.
There's some very gentle ones of those, which is good for balance. Um, but
Yes.
it's easier if, for instance, I'm starting to get more breathless. So I can't do some of the very fast things, sadly. Um, but I really enjoy the slower ones. Yeah.
Thank you.
And do what you can at home too.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Oh,
that,
and sorry. On my sort of training course, I did this week's training course to teach some circle dance earlier this year. Um, there, there were some people who were, well, either knew about or one, I think somebody had already started doing some work in care homes with people in chairs. So yeah, there are things that you can adapt to find dances, choreograph things, that can be done at all sorts of different levels.
Mm. Yeah, you're quite inspired.
Yeah, me too. Uh, uh, all sorts of these talks are great. I find the only problem for me in a lot of these talks is the amount of mental chatter I have going on, being reminded by people of things, and I'm sort of resonating and thinking on what's being said. It's partly an insult, but it's partly really interesting. Oh yeah, this, and oh yeah, that. I had a lovely friend who died just a few years back, and he was one of the dancers, one of the Sufi dancers in Peter Brooks's movie Meetings with about Gurdjieff, Meetings with Remarkable Men, and he ended up with Alzheimer's, but there was such a great sweetness about him towards the end. He didn't become fearful. He was just smiling all the time, and wasn't dancing with him, but he was kind of dancing with people who would visit, and so yeah, a loveliness to that. And recently I had I'm resonating with Patsy and knees, and I discovered I couldn't walk so well. I wasn't able to do harbor walks because of pain. And then I discovered that I'd been persuaded to take statins. And I must do something about this. Somebody at Quaker meeting in Redland mentioned that they couldn't walk so much. They couldn't be because they were in pain quite quickly in meetings because of the effect of statins.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so I thought, well, gosh. So I've discovered a remarkable health benefit from stopping taking statins and feeling, knee pain going away and able to walk a bit more. And I feel the need to I feel the need to go to Redland meeting and find out who it was who told me this and say, look, just stop. Don't do this. But it's what can we? There's two sides to that, and one is things that we can do to carry on dancing, and the other is dancing, doing things to help us carry on doing other stuff. It's sort of life extension technique, expressing our joy. Lovely. So I'm enjoying this, Kate. Thank you.
Yes. Angela.
I have a slightly different take. Going back to 1813 and what Jane Austen wrote in the beginning of Pride and Prejudice, and how for her, an unmarried man, let me read it. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighbourhood, the truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. And then Mrs. Bennet, talking to Mr. Bennet, said, explained that this young man, Bingley, has moved into the neighbourhood. What's his name? Bingley. Is he married or single? Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls. And Mr. Bennet's a bit dim, Why? Well, my dear Mr. Bennet, replied his wife, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them. but it's very likely he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore Mr. Bennet's got to visit this single man as soon as possible. Jane Austen's, and it was through dance. So they would go, I mean, literally at that time, the way an unmarried young man and an unmarried suitable young woman would be through dance. So that's what I thought of.
Right.
Helen.
Hi. That's lovely. Back to circle dance. Kate will know this experience. I have an older friend who taught circle dance for many, many years, and continued to be able to dance. But I guess it was very well established, very well known in her body, like you learn to ride a bike when you're quite young. And she has been able to go on dancing quite a long way into dementia developing. And she's only just stopped doing that. But in an earlier, something that was very lovely was that at an earlier stage, she sort of started handing it over to a younger friend, a member of the group, who learned from her. I guess she learned from other teachers as well, and now runs the group, which maybe gives hope to it not always being an elderly thing, as Kate mentioned. Lovely though it is. So her body was able to go on remembering the dance for a long time. And I think two little postscripts to that. One is that the group that it continues to run every month on the last Tuesday of the month, and it's just about to move from the old library on Muller Road to Horfield Meeting House. So there's going to be a group at Horfield Meeting House once a month from the new year. At the
Great.
Which anybody can come along. What is it? 7:30, I guess. 7:30 on the last Tuesday. And you can go on a mailing list if that interests you. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, just a very funny personal anecdote. Years ago, I went on holiday with this friend. Unfortunately, she's forgotten all about it. And by a series of coincidences, I was able to introduce her to my cousin of the same age, who had been at the same school only a year apart. This cousin of mine, Jill, taught circle dancing at Ealing Meeting House for a long time. She now does it on Zoom, which I cannot quite fathom how you can satisfactorily do circle dance on Zoom, because you can't hold hands and you can't make a circle and be in the room. So that must be quite creative. But yes, they both went to the same school, and they both became quite separately. I don't know if there was a lot of folk dance in this school. I must ask my cousin whether she had the sort of experience Kate had of dancing at school. And this certainly for my friend, for Susanna, she trained in PE teaching because she wanted to be able to teach dance, and that seemed to be the way to go in those days. And she did ballroom dancing and circle dancing and all sorts of stuff through her life.
Oh, I could also mention Woodbrook do a dance worship once a month. I think it's still going on. That is on Zoom.
Yes, I've done that once or twice.
All right.
Yeah.
I keep meaning to, and haven't yet. I've done something a bit similar. There's I have done some dances for Universal Peace, and at one time I went fairly regularly. And the person who teaches that, Matthew Hayes Moore, lives in Bristol, I think. He's a great musician as well. He, I think it was in lockdown, it started, did a thing on Zoom where there was a bit of discussion, and there was sort of meditation, and then he would play and you could do what you wanted, particularly dance to it. And you didn't didn't have to do it in front of the screen, so you could you could do it in your own way, whatever, while he just played. And that was really lovely in Zoom. And I did do some other circle dance in Zoom when we were in total lockdown, because that was all you could do. It's not ideal, as you say, and trying to get round your furniture at home as well is difficult. Yeah. Oh, and I could mention another kind of dance I've done is called Margaret Morris. Well, I'm still doing Margaret Morris dancing, which is not Morris dancing. I always have to say that. Margaret Morris was a dancer, quite well-known dancer in, I think, the 1920s-ish. So that sort of expressive dance that was popular then. But she developed it. In fact, she thought you could educate people completely through dance. But she ran camps for young people. They dance on beaches and all that sort of thing. But she was inspired by the Greek vases and the positions that look very stylized. But she reckoned that these were actually training positions for Greek athletes, because if you do them and swap them round, you are working your core a lot. So we do, and I do this for physical reasons, but I also enjoy it immensely because we have a very good teacher who is a circle dancer, uses some of the circle dance music, some classical, some jazz, everything, I think, really, except pop. And she puts together exercises, really, but in a dance form. And the latest thing we did was we've had to do things which she has choreographed. There's often a bit of improvisation in it, to Vivaldi's Winter. You know that, which is, quite exciting. It's, the violin sort of sharp, jagged kind of music. And so that's another branch, if you like, of dancing. I don't think there's that many groups of Margaret Morris dancing, but it is an international thing. So there are groups around the world that have followed her ideas.
Sorry, but does anyone know why Christians have been so against dancing? You've got phrases like "dance with the devil." There has been. I know my mother was strict Baptist, and although she had gone ballroom dancing with my father when she was younger, she was certainly against any kind of dancing, or and yet she loved music. So I don't understand, but I know that there was this sense of prohibition there.
Quakers were very against dancing, weren't they?
Or even playing instruments.
Yes.
Which is more sedate and maybe less sensual.
Just interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm glad that there's been the change. It seems to me quite likely that it wasn't so much a change as a resurgence, because I'm sure the same feelings of the need to dance would still have been continuing among the population, whether they were told not to do it or not. But what I'm interested in is what it was about dance that was seen to be sinful. I don't know if anyone knows.
Well, I suspect one of the things it can be, especially the circle dance and the old folk dances, they're very egalitarian, which people who want to be in authority see as a threat.
Yeah.
I suppose sometimes they could have been a bit wild. Some of them were to do with originally pagan festivals and fertility and stuff like that. Um, I think it's also a lot to do with control. And it's not just Christian religion that has tried to stop it. Yeah, I'm sure the Taliban don't allow it. Or certainly not any mixed groups. Yeah.
Interesting, but
Mm.
When you were talking about dementia, it reminded me about, I thought it was a study that I read somewhere that they tried different forms of exercise to see, what would be best. And they had all sorts of physical exercise and other kinds of exercise, all different activities, including table tennis and walking and so on. And it was dance that came out as the best because it combined sort of bodily movement, listening, um, and sort of all the senses.
Yeah, I think we're not just with dementia. I think when they looked at getting people to exercise
Yeah.
more who didn't do much, yeah, dance came out on top because people said it was the most enjoyable, and I certainly sympathise with that. I was doing the GP referral thing to get you to exercise more and appropriate to whatever conditions you've got. And I did swimming, which I've always enjoyed, um, and the gym, which I'd never done before. And I wasn't sure if I would get on with the gym, and I can't say I really enjoy a gym. It's, it's a bit boring. I know you can have some music. Yeah. You can't always choose your music though, and yeah, it's very individual, isn't it? Which I find off-putting.
Some people run and run and run and run, don't they? I mean, I've never been any good at running, but I can't imagine it. Well, it's hard for me to imagine the experienced benefits that some people get. And then if I'd had more dance at school and less team sports and gym, I'd have enjoyed that side of things much more because I was really rubbish, really poor at all those things until I found swimming. Yeah.
But I did, there was something called modern dance when I was at school, but I absolutely hated it. And I can't think why I hated it. I was partly the horrible sort of costume we had to wear. It was a sort of like a sort of leotard top and a kind of frilly bottom.
Doesn't sound
But
like
it, but
Marion
but
at
it
all.
was it was but I just didn't enjoy it. You were supposed to leap here and and do stuff there and be creative there, and I just didn't feel very creative. I just couldn't think what to do. So it was I don't know really, and I suppose and when it sort of came to anything later on, like sort of I think there was the odd ballroom dancing thing. I just not just two left feet, about 10 left feet. I don't know why, if I can ride a bike and I can swim, um, why can't I coordinate myself to dance? But it's I find it very difficult. I mean, I enjoyed in my teenage years. I was a sea ranger, and there were They were called square dances, but they would be like what Kayleys are mostly, and you didn't really have to be able to do any fancy steps.
Mm.
You just had to kind of, go forward, go backwards, go sideways, whatever. So I enjoyed those. Um, but then a kind of funny sort of thing happened when I was doing the work in Serbia the first time. And unfortunately, the only time it turned out, the first time they had a big celebration, and they had lots of sort of Serbian, of course, I suppose it'd be Balkan dancing. And there were some quite intricate steps, and I couldn't get my feet around it. So when I came back, I kind of thought, well, maybe next time there'll be more dancing, so I better learn. So I took some lessons with Hilda Sturge, but there were never any more parties after that. So
Yeah. I'm sure I've seen you do circle dance at camp,
oh yes,
Maria.
yeah, because you don't have to be able to do anything. You don't have to know any steps.
Yeah,
You might be doing fancy steps, sort of, step behind, step in front, step this, step that. But you can do it just by walking sideways. So if you looked at my
yeah.
feet, you might have seen something different from what you were doing.
I never did.
No, exactly.
But then, yeah, you don't bother about whether people um, are doing exactly the same. As long as you're moving
Yeah,
as a body all
yeah,
together, and then it works.
yeah.
Well, I've in recent years discovered Zumba Gold, which with a good teacher is great fun. Um, and you're not dancing in a circle or with a partner. You're dancing in your own on your own little spot, more or less, or from side to side and back again. But a couple of things from that. One is that the lovely teacher that I know most recently always says, if you're moving, it's right. If you're keeping moving, it's fine. That's the thing to be doing. And the other thing about it is that if you feel tired afterwards, which I do, tremendously tired, very often it feels that it's more from the mental effort of following what's going on and switching from, four of these and then two of those, which you're following visually. You're not having to remember it all, but you're trying to kind of follow it and build up a bit of a picture of how it goes. It's usually more mentally tiring than physically. But it does both. Like you say, it's got social and physical and cognitive and every other kind of benefit, really. So, yeah.
I remember the first time I encountered reggae music. I thought that was fantastic because you could basically, if you were feeling shy, it wasn't that clear. It didn't have to be that clear whether you had joined in and dancing or not, because you could just be moving in a slight sympathetic way, or you could be doing the whole hog. And I just found the people I met who did that, they were just seemed, it was as if they echoed the dance in that they were very accepting and gentle. And I made some great friends down in St. Werburgh's, and but I loved the music, and I've played the music to myself ever since, and I always move. I would not call it dancing, but I do move always with a reggae beat. That
Well, I
was
would
a
call
real
that
gift.
dancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But it was a real gift, to discover
Yeah.
that something so simple, gives such pleasure, really.
Yeah.
And I do. I sometimes go to a folk club. Um, we sit in rows and appreciate the music and the singing. But I like it when I can see people tapping their feet because
Yeah,
I'm usually doing something.
yeah.
Because I feel that they also are appreciating the music. I mean, the others may be, but I can't see that. But when you see people moving, you feel, oh yeah, they're
Yeah,
also into this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing that, like, you know, like making it's making another connection.
Yeah.
I have to tell us a sort of funny story about the only ever arts therapies conference that there's been that in the UK. In other countries, they combine them all, you know, a lot of the time. But in Britain, art therapy, drama therapy, music therapy, dance movement therapy are all separate streams that that hardly ever seem to meet. But this was one conference. I think it was 1997, so it's quite a long time ago. And we were all encouraged to kind of to collaborate with other modalities. And I think I was sort of paired with somebody doing dance movement. I don't remember much about that, but I do remember the evening party and disco because you could see exactly who was who. So the dance movement therapists were doing arabesques in the air and wonderful kind of curvaceous shapes and, looking absolutely beautiful. And the drama therapists were digging about in a kind of energetic but not terribly coordinated way. And the music therapists were all going, tapping their feet and going de dum with their fingers. And the art therapists, they were just clinging to the wall bars.
No.
Great.
That's a bit sad.
Yeah. So that's, yeah.
I think there's an interesting piece about opening up society and discovering what we can do best and what's best for us. And for me, I've got, I'm a bit sort of nerdy and inhibited. When I was younger, I used to sort of I loved dancing at parties, we had we had just discovered, my generation got rock and roll. And it was as if civilization hadn't actually existed before us. And we had this, really great music that you could get quite wild to. And I just recently went to a party on the lighthouse in the harbour, an 80th birthday party with music and dancing, and it was lovely to be reminded of that. And yeah, so yeah, roll on. So good reminder. Great to have this talk. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's reminded us all of different things, but they're all connected. So it's really good. But, would anyone like to say anything else, or shall we just thank Kate very, very much for coming and talking to us?
Yeah, great.
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
I think we have all really enjoyed it and benefited from it as well, Kate. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, lovely. Is there a talk
I've
next week,
enjoyed it.
Patsy?
Yeah, well, next week, we're hoping for more collaboration because we're inviting people to come and bring some poetry that they enjoy themselves, so we can share it. So if they would be kind enough to read a small piece of it, just to give us a flavour, the rest of us, and then we can all. Or those of us that feel able can do it, and those that would just like to listen, that's okay too. So it's called Poetry, Please, and Ray will be introducing it.
Great.
Hoping he's back from the dentist by then.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
Yes, I will be on a train
Thank you.
next week, so I don't think I'll be able to log in.
All right. Okay.
So,
You'll have to listen to the recording later
yes, yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Bye, everybody. Bye.